The restaurant table gleamed beneath soft candlelight. 2 wine glasses, a small bouquet of lilies, and a single gift box wrapped in silver paper. Daniel Parker checked his watch again. 7:42 p.m. Elise was never this late. In 10 years of marriage, she had never missed an anniversary. He sipped his water, the condensation sliding between his fingers. A gentle hum of laughter floated from nearby tables, couples leaning close, the air rich with warmth and familiarity. Everything Daniel thought his night would be. But the empty seat across from him was beginning to feel like a verdict. He called her again. Straight to voicemail. The recorded voice felt colder than it ever had. "Hey, it's Elise. Leave a message." "Hey, I'm just checking in. Reservations at 7. Hope you're on your way," he said, trying to sound light, normal. He ended the call, but the unease had already taken root. He waited another 15 minutes, then 30. The waiter, polite but hesitant, asked if he should keep the table. Daniel nodded. "She'll be here soon." But the words fell heavy in his throat. Elise was meticulous, the kind who color-coded her planner, who texted reminders to herself about birthdays weeks in advance. Forgetting wasn't in her nature. At 9 p.m., he paid for 2 untouched meals and drove home through the quiet streets of Maplewood. The radio played a soft love song, but it only deepened the hollow pit in his chest. When he reached the driveway, her car wasn't there. The porch light she always left on was off. Inside, the house felt too still. Her shoes weren't by the door, her purse missing from the hook. Daniel set down the gift box and opened his phone again. No messages, no running late, nothing. He checked her last online status. Active 6 hours ago. Strange. He opened her Instagram out of habit, but her profile was gone. Facebook, too. Even her LinkedIn had vanished. It was as if someone had erased her from existence. A chill crept through him. Elise wasn't tech-savvy enough to delete everything herself. Not without reason. He walked into their bedroom and noticed something else. The jewelry box on her dresser was open. Empty. Her passport folder was missing from the drawer. Panic began to rise, slow and suffocating. Daniel called her sister, Megan. "Hey, have you heard from Elise tonight?" "No, why?" "She didn't show up for dinner. Her phone's off." "That's weird. She texted me this morning, said she was taking the day off." "Did she say why?" "No, just said she needed space. Is everything okay?" Daniel didn't answer. He hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photo of their wedding day. Elise's smile, wide, unguarded, felt like a memory from another lifetime. He opened the home banking app, desperate for a clue. A withdrawal of $8,000 that morning. From their joint savings, the timestamp, 10:14 a.m. His throat tightened. He scrolled back through messages. Her last text was from yesterday. "Don't forget the wine tonight. Love you." No hint of anything wrong. Daniel's mind raced through possibilities. An affair, a breakdown, a kidnapping. But none made sense. Elise wasn't impulsive. She hated unpredictability. He stood, pacing. "No, something's off," he muttered, his voice trembling. He tried calling the police, but stopped halfway through dialing. She'd only been missing a few hours. They wouldn't take it seriously yet. He walked to the window, staring out into the dark street. The world outside was calm. Too calm. His reflection in the glass looked foreign, almost hollow. He felt something deep inside him shift, a mix of fear and betrayal. Then, a faint buzz. His phone lit up with a notification. Email from Elise Parker. Subject: "I'm sorry." Daniel froze. His heart pounded as he opened it. Daniel, please don't look for me. I need to disappear for a while. This isn't your fault. You deserve someone honest. E. He read it 3 times, unable to breathe. No explanation, no reason, just goodbye. The sound of the clock ticking filled the silence, each second cutting deeper than the last. Daniel sank into the chair, staring at the glowing screen. The lilies on the table beside him had already begun to wilt, their petals curling inward, like something once alive, quietly dying. Outside, rain began to fall against the window, soft and steady. Inside, Daniel whispered to no one, "Who are you, Elise?" And in that single question, a new fear was born. Not just that she had left him, but that he might never have known who she truly was at all. The next morning bled into gray silence. Daniel hadn't slept. Elise's email replayed in his mind like a broken record. Don't look for me. He sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by cold coffee, untouched toast, and the remains of the life that had unraveled overnight. He refreshed his inbox every few minutes, hoping for another message, an explanation. Nothing. He scrolled through old photos of them, vacations, birthdays, that first apartment. All of it now felt staged, like someone else's story. By noon, Daniel's exhaustion gave way to obsession. He reactivated his old Facebook account, hoping maybe, somehow, Elise had resurfaced. He typed her name in the search bar, Elise Parker. But just like last night, nothing. Then he tried her maiden name, Elise Warner. A few results appeared, one with a profile picture that looked hauntingly familiar. She was standing on a beach in a white dress, wind in her hair, eyes full of laughter. But next to her was a man Daniel had never seen before. His stomach twisted. Before he could process, a notification appeared. Message request from Adam Blake. He hesitated. The name meant nothing. He clicked. Adam Blake. Hey, Daniel. Congrats on your marriage to Elise. I didn't expect to see your profile again. Daniel frowned. Congrats? What kind of sick joke was two? His? He typed back, Who are you? A pause. Then another message popped up. Adam. You must think this is weird. I thought Elise might have told you I'm her husband. The words felt like a punch to the chest. Daniel read them twice, 3 times. Husband. The word screamed inside his skull. He replied, hands trembling. Her husband. I think you've got the wrong person. Seconds later, Adam sent a photo. It loaded slowly, as if the world itself hesitated before showing him the truth. Elise, unmistakable, wearing a white wedding dress, standing beside a man in a gray suit, smiling under an arch of flowers. The date at the bottom corner, 2 weeks ago. Daniel's breath caught. He zoomed in. Her necklace, the same one he'd given her last anniversary. His heart pounded so violently it hurt. He typed again, desperate. Where was this taken? Adam. Santa Rosa, small ceremony, only close friends. She said you were her brother, actually. We met at her old job. She told me you'd moved overseas. Daniel stared at the screen, rage and confusion bleeding into disbelief. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, but no words could match the chaos inside him. She lied, he finally typed. She's my wife. There was a long silence before Adam replied. If this is a joke, it's sick. I have a marriage certificate. We live together. Or, we did, until she vanished last week. Daniel froze. Vanished? He whispered aloud. Adam. She left a note. Said she needed time. Haven't heard from her since. Daniel's pulse quickened. The email, the missing money, the deleted profiles, they all connected now in one impossible truth. Elise hadn't just left him. She'd left both of them. He rose from the table, heart pounding, the walls closing in. "Who are you, Elise?" he muttered again, the question heavier now, sharper. Another message appeared. Adam. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but maybe we should talk, in person." Daniel hesitated only a moment before replying. "Tomorrow, noon. Coffee Haven, downtown." He hit send. As the screen dimmed, Daniel stared at his reflection in the black glass. Hollow eyes, sleepless, haunted. Somewhere in that reflection, he saw the faint shimmer of truth emerging, dark and dangerous. Tomorrow, he would meet the man his wife had secretly married, and that meeting would change everything. Daniel barely slept after the meeting was set. The night stretched endlessly, his thoughts circling around the image of Elise in that white dress, smiling beside another man. It wasn't the face of a stranger. It was the woman he'd loved for a decade, promising forever while planning her escape. Morning light spilled through the blinds, but it brought no clarity. His apartment was littered with open notebooks, screenshots, and empty coffee cups. He stared at his phone, at the message thread with Adam Blake. She vanished last week. The words echoed in his head. Daniel needed answers, and answers meant retracing her last steps. By mid-morning, he was standing in front of Wexler Finch Marketing, the sleek glass building where Elise had worked for years. The receptionist, a young woman with clipped politeness, looked at him blankly when he asked for her. "Elise Parker?" Daniel said. The woman typed something, frowned, then shook her head. "I'm sorry, she's no longer with us." "What do you mean, no longer? She works here." "She resigned," the receptionist replied. "About 4 weeks ago." Daniel blinked. "That's impossible." The woman hesitated, lowering her voice. "She said she was relocating out of state. Left a forwarding email, but it's been deactivated." He stepped back, the lobby spinning slightly. "Relocating," he repeated under his breath. Elise hadn't said a word about quitting her job. Outside, he sat in his car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. His phone buzzed, a message from his old college frit, and Kara, one of Elise's co-workers. Kara: "Dan, I just heard you came by. Are you okay?" Daniel: "No, when did she tell you she was leaving?" Kara: "About a month ago. She said, things between you two were bad. She said you were drinking, controlling." Daniel's breath caught. He typed back, hands shaking. "That's not true. You know that's not true." Kara: "I don't know what's true anymore, Dan." She seemed scared. He dropped the phone onto the passenger seat, staring at nothing. Scared. Elise had twisted the story before disappearing. It wasn't just betrayal. It was sabotage. The day blurred into a haze of disbelief. Daniel drove aimlessly, trying to fit the puzzle together. The woman who shared his bed had been rewriting their marriage while he'd been planning anniversaries. He replayed every argument, every cold silence, wondering if those were moments she'd begun to build her other life. At home, the clock ticked past midnight as Daniel sat at his desk, laptop open. He logged into their phone account, something he'd never done before. He searched Elise's call history, her data records, anything that might explain the lie. One number kept appearing, long calls, multiple times a day, saved under Dr. M. Cole. Daniel frowned. Elise hadn't mentioned seeing a doctor. He searched the number online. A therapist, license revoked 3 years ago. Another pattern emerged. Every time Elise called Dr. M. Cole, she also contacted another number. The area code was from Santa Rosa, the same town where Adam said their wedding took place. His chest tightened. He clicked on her billing records next. 2 phone lines under her name, one registered to Elise Parker, another to Elise Warner. 2 identities. 2 lives. Daniel whispered, "What did you do?" The words barely escaped his throat. He opened her email inbox again, scrolling through the fragments she'd left behind. Vel confirmations, an Airbnb booking, messages to a Margaret Cole, then one that froze him. A payment receipt for a marriage license issued in California. He felt sick. The proof was right there. His wife had legally married another man while still tied to him. For a long moment, Daniel sat motionless, the hum of the laptop filling the silence. Then anger finally cracked through the shock. He slammed the lid shut, his pulse pounding in his ears. "She lied to everyone," he muttered, "even herself." The house around him felt unfamiliar now. The photos, the furniture, all relics of a life built on deceit. He walked to the mirror, catching his own reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, almost unrecognizable. His phone buzzed again. A message from Adam. "Adam, still on for tomorrow?" Daniel stared at it for a long time, then typed back one word. "Yes." He needed to look into the eyes of the man who'd unknowingly shared his wife, and together uncover the woman who had lied to them both. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, low and heavy, as if the storm had finally found him. The cafe smelled of burnt espresso and rain-soaked pavement. Daniel sat in the far corner, his fingers drumming against the chipped wooden table. His stomach felt like a knot pulled too tight. Every few seconds he checked the door, half hoping Adam Blake wouldn't show. Then he did. Adam walked in wearing a damp leather jacket, his dark hair slicked back from the rain. He looked exhausted and wary. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither man moved. Then Adam approached slowly, shoulders tense, like a man entering a room full of ghosts. "Daniel?" he asked. Daniel nodded. "Adam." They sat. Silence hung heavy between them, the kind that only comes when both people have lost the same thing, and don't yet know who to blame. Adam broke it first. "I didn't believe you at first," he said. "But after you texted me that photo of your wedding, it's her. Same face. Same damn necklace." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She told you I was her brother." Adam let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, guess she left that part out. The husband part." They both fell quiet again. Outside, cars hissed through puddles. Daniel studied the man across from him, a few years younger, maybe mid-30s, wearing a ring identical to his own. That detail made Daniel's stomach turn. He finally said, "When did you meet her?" "Last year. She started coming into my bookstore in Santa Rosa. Said she'd just moved from Chicago, working remotely. We got close fast." Adam looked down, ashamed. "She said she'd lost her husband in an accident. I never questioned it." Daniel swallowed hard. "She told me she was working overtime. Guess that's when she was visiting you." The silence cracked again, this time with anger. Daniel slammed his hand against the table, the sound echoing. "How could she do this? What the hell was she planning?" Adam's eyes hardened. "Maybe we both made it easy for her. We saw what we wanted to see." Daniel leaned back, exhaling shakily. He hated that Adam might be right. Elise had always known how to shape herself to what people needed, patient with him, playful with friends, confident with strangers. She'd been everyone's idea of perfect. Adam reached into his jacket and slid something across the table. A photograph. Elise and Adam at the courthouse. "I found this in her drawer," he said quietly. "I thought maybe it would help. Look at the date." Daniel did. 2 weeks before their anniversary. The timing twisted like a knife. He forced himself to meet Adam's gaze. "She's not missing," he said. "She's running. From both of us." Adam frowned. "Running from what?" That's what I intend to find out. They exchanged a long, silent look. Two strangers bound by the same wound. Adam hesitated, then said, "There's one more thing. She left her phone behind when she disappeared. Most of it's wiped, but there's one number she kept calling. MC. Bull. Mean anything to you?" Daniel's blood ran cold. "Yeah, it does." He told Adam everything. The fake phone line, the therapist, the double life. By the time he finished, Adam looked pale. "So you're saying she's not just lying? She's dangerous," Adam whispered. "I don't know yet," Daniel said. "But she's not the woman either of us thought she was." For a long moment, they sat in silence again. Then Daniel stood. "If we're going to find her, we do it together. You in?" Adam hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm in." As they walked out of the cafe, the rain had stopped. The sky was bruised purple, the streets slick with reflected light. Two men, once enemies, now reluctant allies, stepped into the night, united by one question neither could shake. Who was Elise Parker really running from? Them, or something far worse? The night after their uneasy truce, Daniel and Adam sat in the glow of Daniel's laptop, surrounded by empty takeout boxes and pages of notes. Rain tapped against the window again, a rhythmic reminder of how little time had passed since their lives had fallen apart. "She's not just hiding," Daniel said, scrolling through Elise's bank statements. "She's covering her tracks." Adam leaned forward. "There's a charge here, Harborview Inn, Santa Rosa, 3 nights right before she disappeared." Daniel clicked it open, a receipt for a guest under the name Anna Warner, Elise's maiden name. He exhaled. "That's her. She didn't even try to hide it well." By morning, they were at the hotel, a faded coastal building with peeling paint and the smell of salt clinging to the air. The clerk, an older man with silver hair, looked suspicious when Daniel flashed a photo of Elise. "Yeah, she was here," he said, tapping the counter. "Checked in 2 weeks ago. Quiet. Paid in cash." "Did she leave with anyone?" Adam asked. The clerk hesitated. "Maybe. There was another woman. Red coat, dark hair. Always came late at night. They talked outside by the vending machines." Daniel exchanged a look with Adam. The name M. Cole surfaced in his mind like a wake burning. "Do you have security footage?" Daniel asked. "Not supposed to share that," the man replied, glancing around nervously. But when Daniel slipped him a folded 20, he sighed and gestured toward a small back office. On the screen, grainy black and white footage flickered. The date matched the final night of Elise's stay. At 11:46 p.m., she appeared, hoodie pulled tight, backpack slung over her shoulder. She looked around, tense, before stepping into the frame beside another woman in a red coat. "Pause it," Adam said, leaning closer. "That's her." The woman's face was partially hidden, but Daniel recognized the hair, the shape, identical to the therapist's picture from the revoked license file. Margaret Cole. They watched as the two women disappeared into the parking lot. Minutes later, a bus pulled into view. Elise climbed aboard first. The red-coated woman followed. The screen froze on the image of them standing together, one running from her lies, the other guiding her deeper into them. Daniel whispered, "She wasn't escaping me. She was escaping something else." They took the footage to the local police station that afternoon, hoping for answers. The detective on duty, a man named Ruiz, skimmed the report with the indifference of someone used to domestic drama. "So your wife ran off with another woman," Ruiz said flatly. "That's not a crime, Mr. Parker." Daniel's voice sharpened. "It's not that simple. She's using fake names, deleting her history, and there's another husband involved. Doesn't that sound like fraud or worse?" Ruiz shrugged. "You both seem like grown men. Maybe let her go. Some people just want to start over." Daniel clenched his fists. Adam stepped forward, calmer. "Officer, she's not just missing. She's been lying to both of us. If she's in trouble—" Ruiz raised a hand. "Look, unless there's evidence of foul play, it's not our case." They left the station in silence. Outside, the sky was the color of wet concrete, and the smell of rain lingered. "She's gone," Adam muttered, "and no one cares." Daniel stared at the horizon, the waves beyond the parking lot breaking against the rocks. "No," he said quietly. "Someone helped her vanish. People don't just disappear this cleanly." He pulled out his phone, replaying the footage in slow motion. Just before Elise boarded the bus, the red-coated woman touched her arm, a brief, almost protective gesture. Elise nodded. Daniel frowned. That wasn't fear. That was trust. Adam looked over. "So she chose to go?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, but the question is, where was she going?" A gust of wind cut through the air, carrying the smell of sea salt and diesel. Daniel watched the distant bus stop, empty now, and felt the gnawing certainty that Elise's story wasn't about running away from her marriage. It was about running towards something much darker. He turned to Adam. "We find out who that woman is. Margaret Cole. That's our next step." Adam gave a grim nod. "Then we start tonight." The rain began again, light but cold, as they walked back to the car. Two men chasing the ghost of the same woman, unaware that the truth they were about to uncover would destroy whatever was left of the lives she'd touched. By the next morning, Daniel couldn't get the image out of his head. The red coat brushing against Elise's arm, the silent exchange before she disappeared into the bus's shadows. He replayed it over and over until the pixels blurred into static. Margaret Cole. That name now carried weight, the kind that pressed on his chest with every breath. Adam arrived just after sunrise, coffee in hand, eyes hollow from another sleepless night. "You think she's still alive?" he asked. Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he turned his laptop toward Adam. On the screen was an archived article titled, "Local Therapist Suspended After Patient's Death." The photo showed a woman with dark hair, sharp features, and that same red coat. "Margaret Cole," Daniel said quietly. "She lost her license 7 years ago. Patient overdosed during a session. Police ruled it accidental, but there were inconsistencies. Time of death, the medication dosage, missing session notes." Adam leaned closer. "So she's dangerous?" Daniel scrolled down. "Maybe. Or maybe she just got too close to someone who didn't want the truth coming out." He paused, staring at the faded newspaper print. Either way, Elise knew her, probably through therapy. "How do you know that?" Daniel opened another file, one he'd found buried in Elise's old email drafts. An appointment confirmation from 3 months ago. Subject line, "Grief Counseling, Dr. M. Cole." Grief counseling? Adam frowned. What was she grieving? Daniel hesitated. The email included intake notes, basic details, age, occupation, marital status, and then, beneath a line of medical jargon, 2 words struck him cold. Pregnancy loss. He whispered, "She had a miscarriage." Adam's voice softened. "You didn't know?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, she never told me." The words landed like a confession. The air between them thickened, not just with shock, but guilt, confusion, and a creeping sense that Elise's secrets weren't malicious at first. They were survival. Daniel slumped into the chair, staring blankly at the monitor. She must have gone to Cole after it happened. Maybe she was broken. Maybe she blamed me. Adam rubbed his face. Or maybe Cole made her blame you. That possibility lingered. Margaret Cole's professional history painted a pattern. patients who became isolated, dependent, paranoid. A few online forums hinted at unethical methods: hypnosis, regression therapy, emotional control. She lost her license for a reason, Daniel murmured. And Elise was vulnerable. They decided to visit Cole's last known address. It was a small cottage on Toll, the outskirts of town, hidden behind overgrown hedges and rusted garden ornaments. The name on the mailbox was half faded, but still legible: Mayor Cole. Daniel knocked. No answer. The windows were covered with dark curtains. Still, the faint hum of electricity buzzed inside. Someone was home. Adam circled the back, motioning toward a shed with the door slightly ajar. "You sure about this?" "No," Daniel said. "But I need to know." Inside the shed, dust floated like ash in the filtered sunlight. Shelves were lined with old therapy tapes, each labeled with dates and names. Daniel's hand trembled as he found one marked E. Parker, Session 1. He exchanged a look with Adam. "Play it." The recorder hissed, then a voice. Elise's, soft but weary. "I keep dreaming about water, about losing something I can't get back. He doesn't know. I can't tell him. It would destroy him." Daniel froze. Then came another voice, calm, deliberate, familiar. "You're protecting him, Elise. But protection and truth don't always live together. Sometimes you have to become someone else to survive." Margaret Cole. Daniel stopped the tape. His pulse thundered. She was controlling her, getting inside her head. Adam whispered, "This wasn't therapy. It was conditioning." They gathered what they could: the tape, a few notes, a calendar marked with cryptic initials, before slipping back into the car. As they drove away, Daniel looked once more at the cottage. A curtain shifted slightly. Someone was watching. By nightfall, Daniel was at his desk again, replaying the session in fragments, searching for meaning between breaths. Elise's voice cracked near the end. "I think I'm being followed." The tape cut off abruptly. Daniel leaned back, his throat dry. "She wasn't running from us," he murmured. "She was running from her." Adam's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. "You need to hear this," he said, turning the volume up. It was a voicemail, a distorted, faintly trembling voice. Elise's. "If you find Margaret, don't trust her. She's not who you think she is." The message ended in static. Daniel's heart stopped. "She's alive." Adam looked at him wide-eyed. "Then we're not the only ones looking for her." Outside, headlights swept across the window, too slow to be passing traffic. Daniel turned toward the sound, pulse hammering. "Someone's here." The headlights outside Daniel's house faded into the distance, leaving only silence and the low hum of tension between him and Adam. Neither spoke for a long time. Elise's voicemail, her trembling warning not to trust Margaret, echoed in Daniel's mind like a heartbeat that refused to stop. By morning, Daniel's exhaustion had hardened into focus. "We're missing something," he said, spreading out the notes they'd taken from Margaret Cole's shed. Scribbled dates, initials, strange codes. EP, MC, and one set of numbers that didn't match any date. Adam leaned over. What if that's not a date? What if it's an address? Daniel froze. 327. That's downtown, near the riverfront. They exchanged a look. Within an hour, they were standing outside an aging apartment building wedged between a pawn shop and a laundromat. The hallway smelled of stale cigarettes and bleach. Apartment 327's door was locked, but the frame was old, brittle. One firm push from Adam, and it gave way with a dull crack. Inside, the air was cold and still, as if no one had lived there, Yet everything was meticulously arranged. Minimal furniture, a coffee mug in the sink, curtains drawn. On the table sat a small duffel bag, half-zipped, stuffed with envelopes and foreign bills. Daniel's throat tightened. She's been here. Adam picked up one of the envelopes. Inside were stacks of $100 bills wrapped in rubber bands, at least $40,000. Next to it lay 2 passports. Daniel flipped them open. The first bore Elise's picture, but the name read Elise Parker. The second, same PH. Otto different name, Elise Martin. 2 identities, Adam muttered. 2 lives. Daniel felt dizzy. She was preparing to disappear. On the counter, an unregistered phone buzzed faintly as if triggered by their movement. Its screen lit up with one unread message from a contact saved simply as M. He tapped it open. The message was recent, sent just 2 days ago. Everything is ready. Don't contact either of them again. Adam exhaled slowly. She's cutting us off. Daniel shook his head. No, someone's cutting her off. He scrolled through older messages. The tone was clinical, almost commanding. You're doing the right thing. Stay quiet until the transfer is complete. Trust no one, not even yourself. None of it made sense, yet each line felt like another thread in the web Elise had been trapped in. On the kitchen counter, Daniel found a small notebook, thin, with pages covered in neat handwriting. Inside were lists of cities, phone numbers, and strange abbreviations. SD, confirmed. B, waiting. M, safe house. Then, near the end, one note stood out in bold ink. If they find this place, it means I failed. Daniel's stomach dropped. She knew someone would come, he said softly. Adam rubbed the back of his neck. This isn't about marriage anymore. It's about survival. Before they could speak further, a faint noise broke the stillness, the creak of a floorboard from the hallway outside. Daniel froze. Adam motioned toward the door, but by the time he peeked through the peephole, the corridor was empty. He whispered, "We're being watched again." Daniel stuffed the passports, the notebook, and the phone into his bag. "We can't stay here." They exited through the back staircase, emerging into the alley behind the building. A black sedan idled across the street, its windows tinted. As soon as Daniel and Adam stepped into view, the engine revved and the car sped away. Adam cursed under his breath. That wasn't coincidence. Daniel's voice trembled with restrained anger. They knew we'd come here, which means Margaret's not working alone. They ducked into a nearby cafe, trying to collect themselves. Daniel spread the items across the table like puzzle pieces. 2 passports, cash, burner phone, messages from M. This was an escape plan. But from who? Adam tapped the phone. Let's find out who M really is. He inserted the SIM card into another device, rerouting it through a tracing app. A few minutes later, a location pin appeared, on the outskirts of town. Daniel leaned closer. That's near Margaret Cole's property. Adam's jaw clenched. Then she's not just a therapist. She's part of something bigger. Daniel looked out the cafe window, eyes hollow but determined. If Elise was running, maybe she wasn't the liar after all. The burner phone suddenly vibrated again. One new message. This time, from the same number. You were warned. Stop looking for her. Both men stared at the screen in silence. Then Daniel whispered, Now they know we've found her trail. Outside, the reflection of the cafe glass showed a figure in a red coat crossing the street, slowly, deliberately, heading their way. The woman in the red coat never entered the cafe. She lingered at the corner, then vanished into the passing crowd. But her appearance left Daniel shaken. Confirmation that Margaret Cole, or someone working with her, was always one step ahead. By the next day, Daniel and Adam were running on fumes. The burner phone was still clutched in Daniel's pocket. Its final message burned into his mind. You were warned. They decided to split up. Adam to trace financial trails from the cash Elise had stashed, Daniel to dig deeper into Margaret's past. What he didn't expect was a phone call from an unfamiliar number mid-morning. A woman's voice, trembling but deliberate. "You're looking for Elise Parker, aren't you?" Daniel froze. "Whoa, who is this?" "My name's Rachel," she said. "I used to go to Margaret Cole's group sessions. I think you should hear what they really did there." They met in a park on the east side of town, open enough to feel safe, quiet enough for secrets. Rachel looked older than her years, her eyes darting toward every passerby. She wore long sleeves despite the heat, nervous fingers tugging at the cuffs. "I met Elise 3 years ago," she began. "I was leaving my husband. He was violent. She told me about a support group that helped women start over. Said it was run by her therapist, Margaret." Daniel's pulse quickened. "A support group?" "They called it a healing circle," Rachel said bitterly. "It started like therapy, sharing stories, crying, journaling. But then it changed. They told us to cut contact with everyone, even family. Said the only way to heal was to surrender control." Daniel frowned. "Control to who?" "To them," Rachel whispered. "Elise collected money from all of us. Said it was for new identities and safe houses. Some women gave everything they had. Then one night, Elise and Margaret vanished. Just like that." Daniel's stomach twisted. "How many women?" 8. Maybe more. 2 of them were never seen again. The words hung heavy in the air. Rachel's voice cracked as she added, "When I went to the police, they said it sounded like a cult scam. But when I tried again last year, an officer told me there was already a missing persons file tied to Margaret Cole. He wouldn't say who." Daniel's mind reeled. Elise's therapy sessions, the cash, the aliases, the passports. It all began to fit together like a grotesque puzzle. "Do you have proof?" he asked. Rachel handed him a folded newspaper clipping. It showed a smiling young woman, Julia Benton, 29, missing since 2018. The caption mentioned her last known location, attending a women's retreat hosted by former therapist Margaret Cole. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "She disappeared from their circle." Rachel nodded. "And now you're looking for someone who helped make it happen." Before Daniel could respond, a low buzz came from his phone. A message from Adam. "Police just called. They're reopening the Benton case. They want to talk to you." He turned to Rachel. "Why contact me now?" Her eyes glistened. "Because I think Elise wanted out. Margaret was in control of everything. Money, documents, even the stories we told each other. Elise started questioning her last year, then she stopped showing up. That's when Margaret began threatening us." "Threatening how?" Rachel's hand trembled as she unrolled her sleeve, revealing a faint scar shaped like a ring burn. "She said it was a mark of silence. A reminder that secrets keep us safe." Daniel's breath hitched. "Jesus." "She called it therapy," Rachel whispered. "But it was obedience training." Daniel sat back, feeling the weight of every revelation pressing down. If Rachel was telling the truth, Elise hadn't just vanished to escape guilt. She'd been part of something criminal. Maybe even terrified of what she'd helped create. His phone buzzed again. This time a call from Detective Morris, the same officer who had dismissed him days ago. "We've verified your tip," the detective said flatly. "There's enough to reopen the missing persons case tied to Margaret Cole. But listen, Daniel. Your wife's name is showing up in financial records tied to one of the victims. That makes her part of the investigation. Daniel's voice trembled. You think she did this willingly? That's what we're going to find out, Morris replied. But if you find her before we do, you call me first. Understand? The call ended, leaving Daniel staring blankly at his reflection in a puddle. The man looking back at him was someone he barely recognized, haunted, uncertain, angry. He turned to Rachel. If Elise wanted out, maybe that's what got her killed. Rachel's eyes widened. Or maybe it's why she's still hiding. Daniel nodded slowly, gripping the burner phone. Then Margaret's still the key, and if she ran this circle, she's not done yet. Behind them, a camera shutter clicked, faint but unmistakable. Rachel froze. Did you hear that? Daniel turned sharply, scanning the trees. A figure in black stepped behind a lamppost, camera still raised. Then, without warning, the figure ran. Daniel bolted after them, heart pounding, but by the time he reached the corner, the street was empty. Only a discarded envelope lay on the ground, his name written on it in red ink. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single photo. Elise, sitting across from Margaret at a cafe, time-stamped 3 days ago. The photo of Elise with Margaret burned in Daniel's mind all night. 3 days ago. That meant Elise was still alive, somewhere between victim and accomplice, truth and betrayal. But now, with police reopening old cases and strangers following him through streets, Daniel knew time was running out. By morning, he met Adam at the edge of town, the envelope still in his hand. We're getting close, Daniel said. That photo proves she's with Margaret. We just need to find where. Adam was already scrolling through the burner phone. The GPS log pinged again last night, he said. Same location, north of the highway, near the forest line. Daniel frowned. No one lives out there. Exactly. They drove for nearly 2 hours, the city fading into gray countryside. The road narrowed into dirt, leading through skeletal trees that clawed at the fog. Finally, the signal stopped at a rusted mailbox with no name, only a number. 14. The cabin sat 100 yards beyond, weathered, quiet, half swallowed by vines. Its windows were boarded, chimney cracked, yet faint tracks in the mud suggested recent movement. Adam grabbed a flashlight. Ready? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. The front door creaked open to reveal a stale, metallic smell, old wood and something sharper beneath it. Inside, the air felt heavy, wrong. Jesus, Adam whispered. Papers covered the floor, folders marked with initials, Polaroids pinned to the walls, women's faces, smiling, eyes blurred by flash glare, each labeled with a first name and a number. Julia 01, Harper 02, Elise 07. Daniel's stomach dropped. They were tracking them, cataloging them. He picked up a file marked E. Parker, Martin. Inside were copies of driver's licenses, fake marriage certificates, and signed consent forms, all bearing Elise's handwriting. His throat tightened as he flipped through each page, trying to understand. She married them, Adam murmured, holding up another file. Different men, different states, different names, all under aliases. Daniel's voice cracked. She wasn't just running from us. She was part of something bigger. A pattern. They followed the trail of papers to a small room in the back. There, under the broken window, lay something that stopped Daniel cold. Elise's silver necklace. The one he gave her on their first anniversary, shaped like a teardrop. It was stained, dark at the chain. Daniel's knees went weak. No, no, no. He crouched, touching the pendant as if it might still be warm. Then he saw it. Faint streaks on the wooden floor, smeared in a half circle. Blood. Adam's voice was low. This happened recently. They exchanged a glance, fear mixing with the possibility that Elise was hurt, maybe worse. Daniel felt the walls closing in, every sound amplified. The wind outside whistled through the cracks like a whisper of warning. Suddenly, movement. A shadow outside the window. Daniel turned sharply. Someone's out there. Adam aimed the flashlight through the glass, catching a flicker of motion, a figure darting behind the trees. They ran out the door, boots thudding through the mud, but whoever it was had vanished into the forest. Only a faint echo remained, the crunch of leaves, then sill. When they returned inside, a new sound broke the stillness, a faint ringing. Daniel traced it to the corner, where a burner phone sat on the table, its cracked screen lighting up. Unknown number? He answered with a trembling voice. Hello? A distorted whisper came through. You shouldn't have come here. Daniel's blood ran cold. Where's Elise? You still think she's innocent? The voice was low, female, almost mocking. You don't know what she's capable of. Then the line went dead. Adam stared at him. That wasn't Margaret. Daniel nodded slowly. No, that was Elise. Before either could speak again, a knock rattled the cabin door. Sharp, urgent. Daniel froze. Adam reached for a heavy metal rod leaning against the wall. Stay behind me. The door opened to reveal an elderly man clutching a flashlight, eyes wide with fear. What the hell are you two doing here? He demanded. Daniel stepped forward. We're looking for a woman, Elise Parker. Have you seen her? The man's voice wavered. You mean the one who came with that therapist lady? They rented this place a few weeks ago. I heard shouting 2 nights ago, then a scream. He swallowed hard. After that, nothing. Daniel's pulse pounded. Did you see anyone leave? The man shook his head. No. But a car came around dawn. Black SUV. Drove off fast. Adam exchanged a grim look with Daniel. That's them. Margaret. Maybe both. The neighbor backed away slowly. You folks should go. Whoever was here, they ain't coming back. As he disappeared into the trees, Daniel stood in the doorway, staring at the necklace in his hand. It felt like both a clue and a goodbye. She was here, he said quietly, alive, but she's running from something she started. Adam's jaw tightened. Or from someone who finally turned on her. Outside, thunder rolled across the forest, the first drops of rain hitting the dirt like whispers of what was coming. Daniel looked once more at the cabin, at the blood, the files, the ghosts. We're not done, he murmured. Not until we know the truth. The rain did. I didn't stop until dawn. By then, the cabin was sealed off by yellow tape and blue lights, the forest crawling with investigators. Daniel stood beside the hood of his car, soaked and silent, Elise's blood-stained necklace clenched in his fist. Detective Morris approached, his coat dripping. You did the right thing calling us, he said. But you might want to brace yourself. We found something. Daniel looked up, his voice raw. What? Morris hesitated. A body, 1/2 mile east of the cabin. Female, late 40s, burned. Adam's breath caught. Margaret Cole. Morris nodded grimly. Dental records confirm it. Time of death, 2 nights ago, right after that scream your neighbor heard. The words hit like thunder. Daniel's first thought wasn't relief or even shock. It was confusion. If Margaret was dead, then who had been sending the messages from her number? Who had been watching them? Morris continued. The scene was messy, accelerant used, but we found something she didn't mean to burn. A flash drive hidden in the lining of her jacket. He pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing a melted USB stick. Tech team recovered one file. You'll want to hear it. Inside the cabin, the detectives had set up a temporary workstation. Daniel and Adam sat across from a monitor as the recovered audio began to play. Margaret's voice filled the room, calm, deliberate, clinical. Elise, you've done well. The transfers came through. The men believe your story. But remember, lies only work if you believe them yourself. Then Elise's voice, shaky but determined. You said this was temporary, that we'd help women, not scam them. Help? Margaret laughed softly. You think they'd ever help you if they knew who you were? You needed a clean slate, I gave you that. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. Elise had sounded terrified, trapped between guilt and survival. The wreckeries, Ding continued. I'm done, Margaret, Elise said. I'm not doing this anymore. Margaret's tone darkened. You owe me, Elise. Don't forget who covered for you after what happened in Chicago. A sharp intake of breath. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, Margaret hissed. One file to the police, and they'll know exactly what kind of woman you are. You'll lose everything. Again. Then the sound of a struggle, furniture scraping, a crash, a scream, then silence. The file ended there. Morris exhaled slowly. We're still verifying timestamps, but the metadata matches the night of the fire. Whoever hit record wasn't Margaret. The mic was placed on Elise's phone. Daniel's voice trembled. So Elise didn't kill her? Morris shrugged. Hard to say, but the evidence paints a messy picture. We found Elise's fingerprints on a gas can near the body, and tire tracks matching her car. Adam frowned. She could have been there trying to stop her. Morris looked between them. Or finishing what she started. Daniel stared at the dark window, his reflection barely visible in the glass. You don't know her, he said quietly. She wasn't a killer. The detective sighed. Maybe not, but Margaret's death just made Elise the prime suspect in a fraud ring and a possible homicide. If she's alive, she's running out of places to hide. After the police cleared out, Daniel and Adam sat in silence. The glow from the monitors flickered across the floor, illuminating the burned edges of the recovered files. Daniel's mind raced through every memory, every look, every hesitation Elise ever had. She wanted out, he murmured. That's why she married you, Adam. It wasn't love, it was leverage. She needed money to disappear before Margaret could ruin her. Adam's jaw clenched. So I was just her ticket to freedom. Daniel shook his head. No, she didn't plan to hurt anyone. She was desperate. Margaret controlled her. Probably blackmailed her for years. Outside, wind rattled the cabin's loose boards, sending ash from the fire pit swirling through the air. It looked like the forest itself was breathing smoke. Adam stood. So what now? Daniel picked up the melted USB case, running his thumb over its charred surface. Margaret's dead. But if Elise recorded that call, it means she wanted someone to find it. He met Adam's eyes. She's trying to tell us the truth. A sudden crackle broke the silence, the burner phone lighting up again on the table. A new message, no number listed. You're close. Check the fire. She left something behind. Daniel's heart pounded. He rushed outside, flashlight slicing through the mist, and knelt by the burned patch where Margaret's body had been found. Sifting through wet ashes, his hand brushed something hard, a metal lighter, engraved with the initials E.P. Inside its casing, folded tightly, was a strip of paper. Scorched, but readable. 3 words remained intact. Not my blood. Daniel stared at the words, rain dripping from his hair, realization dawning like a slow, terrible light. Elise isn't dead, he whispered. She's still out there. The bus terminal smelled of diesel and cheap coffee, a restless place where no one stayed long enough to be remembered. Daniel stood near gate 17, heart hammering, eyes locked on the woman sitting alone by the vending machines. Her hair was shorter, dyed a dull brown, her clothes plain and loose. But when she looked up, the familiar blue in her eyes made time stop. Elise. She froze when she saw him. Her hands trembled as she rose, scanning for exits. But Daniel stepped forward, blocking her path. "Don't," he said softly. "Please." For a moment she looked ready to run, then something inside her broke. Her shoulders sagged, the fight gone from her eyes. "How did you find me?" Daniel held up the engraved lighter, its metal still scorched. "You left this. You wanted me to." Elise looked down, her throat tightening. "I wasn't sure you'd understand." He took a step closer. "Try me." The terminal around them faded. The noise, the crowd, everything, until there was only the distance between two people who once believed in forever. "Elise," Daniel said, voice trembling. "Why? Why lie? Why marry him, then vanish? What was real?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. Finally, she whispered, You were the only real thing." Tears filled her eyes as she sank into a nearby bench, clutching her bag like armor. "I didn't plan any of it at first. The therapy, the fake name, it all started when I met Margaret. She said she could help me heal after the miscarriage." Her voice broke. "You didn't even know, did you?" Daniel shook his head, breath catching. "No, you never told me." "I couldn't," she said. "I thought it was my fault. Margaret said she could help me start over, wipe the past clean. But it wasn't therapy. It was control. She taught me how to create identities, how to manipulate, how to disappear. And once I did, she owned me." Daniel's mind reeled. "So Adam—" "She didn't love him," Elise interrupted, almost pleading. "She used him, just like Margaret told her to. The second marriage wasn't about love. It was about money. Margaret needed funds to leave the country. I was supposed to make it happen, but I couldn't do it again." She wiped her eyes. "When Margaret found out I was planning to turn her in, she threatened to expose everything. The fraud, the fake names, the Chicago file. She said she'd ruin you too, drag you into it." Daniel swallowed hard. "So you ran." "I ran because I thought if I disappeared she'd stop. But she followed me to that cabin. She wanted me to finish the transfers, and when I refused, she lost control." Elise's voice cracked. "The fire. It wasn't supposed to happen. I tried to stop her and—" She hesitated, tears spilling. "She fell. The fire spread fast. I thought she was dead. I thought I had no choice but to keep running." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You could have told me." "You think I didn't want to?" she cried. "But every time I looked at you—" All I saw was the woman I used to be. The one who believed she could be a mother, a wife, someone good. And I'm not her anymore, Daniel. I ruined everything I touched." He knelt in front of her, his voice breaking. "You didn't ruin me. You just ran before you gave me the chance to fight for you." A sob escaped her. "I didn't deserve to be found." Before Daniel could speak, footsteps echoed. Two detectives approached, Morris among them. He gave Daniel a solemn nod. "Elise Parker," Morris said gently. "You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice." Elise didn't resist. She stood, hands trembling as the cuffs clicked shut. "I guess this is where the truth finally matters," she whispered. As they led her away, Daniel called out, "Elise!" She turned, eyes wet, a faint, broken smile on her lips. "I did love you," she said quietly. "That was the only part that wasn't a lie." The officers guided her toward the exit. Daniel stood rooted to the floor, watching the woman he once knew disappear into the dawn's cold light. The bus engines roared to life, drowning out everything but the echo of what might have been. Outside, as the terminal emptied, Daniel noticed something fluttering near the bench where Elise had sat. A torn page from her notebook, damp from her tears. He picked it up. 3 words were scrawled across it in hurried ink. "He's still alive." Daniel froze, pulse spiking. Margaret was dead. Wasn't she? He looked toward the departing police car, the paper trembling in his hands. The sun was rising, but the shadow behind Elise's story was just beginning to emerge. 6 months later, the courtroom smelled of disinfectant and old wood, a place where truth was dissected like a body on a slab. Daniel sat in the witness box, hands clasped tightly, trying to ignore the faint hum of the ceiling fan. Across the room, Elise sat at the defense table in a pale gray prison uniform, wrists cuffed, eyes fixed on the floor. She looked smaller now, not the woman who once filled their home with laughter, nor the ghost who vanished into lies. Just human. Fragile. The prosecutor's voice echoed, "Mr. Parker, would you say the defendant intentionally deceived you and Mr. Blake for personal gain?" Daniel hesitated, glancing toward Elise. She didn't look up, didn't even flinch. For a moment, he saw flashes of their past, the late-night talks, the road trips, her hand brushing his as they shared morning coffee. Then he remembered the lies, the 2 weddings, the blood at the cabin. "Yes," he said finally, his voice steady but hollow. "She deceived us. But I don't think it started that way." The courtroom murmured. The prosecutor frowned, ready to object, but the judge lifted a hand. "Continue." Daniel swallowed hard. "I think it started with pain. She was manipulated, yes, but at some point, she became part of the manipulation. I can't excuse her, but I can't hate her either." When he stepped down from the stand, Elise finally looked at him. Just once. Her eyes were unreadable, part apology, part resignation. The gavel fell. 10 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 7. A sharp breath escaped Daniel's chest. It was over. Or at least, the legal part was. Adam didn't stay for the verdict. He'd moved out of state weeks earlier, leaving only a brief message on Daniel's phone. "I can't forgive her, but I can't hate her either. Maybe that's worse." The months that followed blurred together. Paperwork, therapy, silence. Daniel sold their house, donated most of her things, and tried to live without the ghost of her voice echoing in every room. But every so often, he'd see something that reminded him of her, a stray perfume scent, a song she used to hum, and grief would tighten around him like a noose. Then came the letter. It arrived without a return address, written in Elise's precise handwriting. Just one line. "If you ever find peace, don't let it be because you forgot me." At first he almost threw it away, but something in those words compelled him to see her, one last time, not for closure, just to say goodbye. The prison visitation room was cold, the air filled with echoes of other endings. Elise sat across from him behind a glass partition, her hands resting on the table. The dark circles under her eyes told stories the court never heard. "You shouldn't have come," she said quietly, picking up the phone. "I didn't come for you," Daniel replied, his voice low. "I came for the woman I used to know." A faint smile flickered across her face. "She doesn't exist anymore." "Maybe she never did," he said, almost gently. For a moment they just stared at each other. Two people who had shared a life built on love and lies, now separated by truth. "I keep thinking about that night," Daniel said. "The anniversary. If you'd just come home." She interrupted softly. "If I'd come home, I'd still be lying to you. You would have forgiven me for something I hadn't even confessed yet. That's worse." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I don't know if I'll ever understand you." "You're not supposed to," Elise said, voice trembling. "You just have to live." Daniel leaned closer to the glass. "Do you ever think about me?" Her eyes softened. "Every day. But not the way you think. I think about what I ruined. What I could have been if I hadn't tried to erase who I was." She hesitated, tears spilling. "You loved me for the woman I wanted to be. I just couldn't keep pretending." Silence hung between them, the kind that stretches years in a single breath. Finally, Daniel whispered, "Goodbye, Elise." She smiled faintly, a ghost of the woman he once knew. "Goodbye, Daniel." He stood and walked toward the exit, each step feeling heavier than the last. Outside, the winter wind stung his face. The sun was low, burning through the gray clouds like something fighting to be seen. He looked back at the gray walls one last time, then slipped Elise's letter from his pocket. It fluttered from his fingers, carried away by the wind, disappearing just like her. Some loves don't end. They just fade into memory, leaving behind questions that never stop echoing. For Daniel, loving Elise had been both salvation and curse. The cost of loving a ghost wasn't losing her. It was realizing she'd never truly existed at all. He turned toward the horizon, exhaled, and finally, for the first time in years, let her go.